This week I received a letter from a young friend of mine named David. He's 24 years old, and he grew up in a house that was relatively hostile to religion. His parents had had both very bad experiences with it, and when he grew up, after moving away from home, he decided that he had a kind of spiritual yearning, a desire for God, and so he was baptized about a year ago. And so David wrote in his letter, he said, "How do I live a spiritual life, a Christian life, a life of piety and faith?" And it reminded me very much of a story in the Bible where a young lawyer goes to Jesus and says, "What do I need to do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus says, "Well, what do you think you need to do to inherit eternal life?" And the lawyer says, "You need to love God and love your neighbor." And Jesus says, "That's it. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." But practically speaking, when you're in your 20s, there are some things that are especially important for life. One of them is to choose the right kind of career. Buddhists have this idea called right livelihood. It means that how you work should be a way of benefiting other people, benefiting all creation. And it's sometimes very difficult to find work that's like that, but it's so important for your well-being as a spiritual being. The second thing that I would like to point out to all people is the importance of Sabbath. The idea of Sabbath, of setting some time aside from work in your life. It's an ancient idea. It's even older than the stories of how the world was made. So when God created the world, God worked for 6 days, and on the seventh day, God rested. And we get too caught up in the idea of rest. It's not so much about rest for me as a chance to step away from our regular life and to be able to see the world again in terms of joy and wonder and awe. That life is a precious gift to us. Today I have a poem that's from Wendell Berry, and it's on Sabbath. It's called 1985-5. And it's a poem where he talks about our life as being like cultivated fields. Fields that are growing farmed, and how important it is to spend some time in those fields and other times in what he calls the woods, that place of awe where we're nourished by God. So this is his poem. How long does it take to make the woods? As long as it takes to make the world. The woods is present as the world is, the presence of all its past and all its time to come. It is always finished. It is always being made. The act of its making forever greater than the act of its destruction. It is a part of eternity, for its end and beginning belong to the end and beginning of all things. The beginning lost in the end in the beginning. What is the way to the woods? How do you get there? By climbing up through the 6 days' field, kept in all the body's years, the body's sorrow, weariness, and joy. By passing through the narrow gate on the far side of that field, where the pasture grass of the body's life gives way to that high original standing of the trees, by coming into the shadow of the grace of the straight ways ending, the shadow of the mercy of light. Why must the gate be narrow? Because you cannot pass beyond it burdened. To come in among these trees, you must leave behind the 6 days' world, all of its plans and hopes. You must come without weapon or tool, alone, expecting nothing, remembering nothing, into the ease of sight, the brotherhood and sisterhood of eye and leaf. I don't know what you're doing outside of your working life, but my prayer is that in order to have a full spiritual experience of yourself and your existence, that you've set aside some time to experience joy and wonder in your life. My name is Malcolm Clemens Young. I'm the Dean of Grace Cathedral here in San Francisco, California. Thanks for watching. More good news.